Lights are going up, snow is falling down. There's a feeling of goodwill around town. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here. People throwing parties, ugly sweaters everywhere. Stockings hung up by the chimney with care. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here.
At participating McDonald's for a limited time.
Audible's best of 2024 picks are here. Discover the year's top audiobooks, podcasts, and originals in all your favorite genres. From memoirs and sci-fi to mysteries and thrillers, Audible's curated list in every category is the best way to hear 2024's best in audio entertainment. Like a stunning new full-cast production of George Orwell's 1984. Heartfelt memoirs like Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson's Lovely One. The year's best fiction, like The Women by Kristen Hanna, and Percival Everett's brilliantly subversive James. Audible. There's more to imagine when you listen. Go to audible.com/imagine and discover all the year's best waiting for you.
With Credit Karma, finding the right credit card for you is easy. Our app analyzes user profiles to suggest personalized recommendations. Visit creditkarma.com today to explore cards tailored to your needs. Credit Karma, simplifying your financial choices.
Because it's that special time of the month, we get to shout out our You Can Get It level sponsors, and they are Irk Like Jerk, Heather, Kathy, Nikki, Knitting Menace, Spooky Lime Pie, Renee, Billy, Caitlin, Dharma, Grace, Seth, Bryce, Sean, Allie, Dr. Voorhees, MD, Amelia, Becca, AJ, Radioactive Spider Gwen, Irene, Nate, Naomi, Bex, Laura Lubu, Cameron, Kaylee, Jackie, Alyssa, Mushroom Snail Fox, and Unintentionally Badass, aka Jennifer. And all the patrons want you to know you're loved, you're listened to, and you're a valuable member of this awesome Horror Virgin community. And if you want to hang out with us, do so in the Facebook group where we will be hanging out and talking about the similarities between this movie and Immaculate daily, at least this week. Paige, so I brought you to this honestly nice hotel room in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Ooh, fancy.
Yeah, I'm at the Fair. I'll say because I won't be here when this comes out. I'm at the Fairmont in Scottsdale. It's called the Princess.
Which room?
Guys, come on down to 2330 and freak out the new occupants. I'll be gone.
Knock, knock, knock. Was Todd here?
Yes, the ghost of me still haunts the hallway because, Paige, when I put my room service tray in the hallway to have them collect it.
Sure.
Let's just say I had gotten comfortable for dinner.
Sure.
I was sitting down watching this movie. So I wasn't like fully clothed, but I had like I didn't have shoes on, right? It was just like whatever. I was like, I had my pants on, I had my shirt.
I was disheveled. I was missing shoes.
Yes, I had taken off my blazer, but my vest was still on. That's what I'm saying. Right. Anyway, I heard the door close behind me as I set my tray down, and I didn't have my phone. I didn't have anything on me. I didn't have the room key. And this place is huge. It's like 65 acres. It was a 10.5-minute walk to the lobby. You know what's better than that, Paige?
How nude were you? Was it just no shoes?
It truly was just no shoes. The funny part was I was FaceTiming Natalie when it happened. So I had to transfer the call to my watch while leaning against the door so my watch would stay connected. And I could be like, hey, babe, I'm an idiot. Thank you for having married me.
Thank you for tuning into Horror Virgin. I'm Paige.
And I'm your Horror Virgin Todd, which means I don't like scary movies, but you guys make me watch them. And this week, we gave you all the gift we thought you wanted.
Sure.
And that movie was The First Omen.
We thought you wanted to watch Immaculate again, but not quite as good.
That is sort of how I felt about it. Yeah. Although I feel like whereas Immaculate leaned really hard into like the metaphor and everything like made the point of the metaphor, this movie plays it really practical of like what it would actually be like to be living in that situation as her.
Yeah.
Which is a different kind of scary. I don't think it's as effective of a movie, but it's still like there were some moments that really freaked me out.
I mean, there's some jump scares for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, there's some jump scares.
I watched the first half of this on the plane And there's a moment that happens pretty early on.
Oh, yeah. I wrote it down.
I like bumped the dude next to me in the airplane. Also, the moment I decided to stop watching this on the airplane was when they showed the devil's hand coming out of a vagina.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe the aisle was a bad choice.
That does happen in this movie. That is a thing that you see.
I was like, they won't show it. No, they're like, we're going to show everything, you idiot. And they did. And I showed it to everyone on the plane.
And you showed it to the whole plane. That was after they heavily implied that they gave that poor woman an episiotomy with no drugs. Yeah, that was, whew. Here's what I will say.
Say it.
I feel like because of the things going on in the current climate,
Sure.
politically, worldwide, I fully understand how two parallel thinking movies like this happened, because it is, they were filming at the same time. There's no indication that they knew about each other. Just two very similar movies happen, and they take very different tactics about it, right? I think about it the same way I think about Drive and Baby Driver, where it's like technically these movies have very, very similar plot points, but they're very different movies. And I feel like the same goes here.
Yeah, their vibe is so different.
The vibe is very different.
Because Baby Driver's fine and Drive is amazing. I like Baby Driver. I think Drive is an amazing movie.
Yes, it is the one I prefer of the two.
Yeah, but Baby Driver is great. This movie, I agree, very different in vibe from Immaculate.
This is the Baby Driver.
Yes.
Immaculate is the Drive. Yes.
But I still think it's a good movie. I think had Immaculate come out 5 years ago or maybe 5 years in the future or whatever.
And you couldn't compare them as closely.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, it had happened so long in the past, you'd be like, oh, this is like an Immaculate, or vice versa or whatever. I do feel like it would have been, I think both of them might have made a bigger impact.
Sure.
But I really think both the movies are great. I loved both of them. I think Immaculate is better.
Yes.
But that's just because I'm a little film nerdy. I get why you might like this one better.
I do. I feel like there's two key differences between them that makes me put Immaculate number one with a bullet, no, not even a question.
Yeah, The Rock.
Well, yeah, The Rock.
They dropped the rock on the baby. Like, I mean, you can't kill the baby in this because this baby is Damien.
Right.
So, like, that baby, we already know what happens to that baby.
But Immaculate is paced incredibly. This is not. The pacing in this movie really hurts it. Really hurts it bad.
This movie felt like Return of the King.
Yeah.
Like, it was, oh my God, ending after ending after ending.
You could cut 30 minutes out of this movie and you wouldn't even miss it. You wouldn't even miss it. And it wouldn't be anything that you needed for the story. It could just hit the cutting room floor. Immaculate, complete opposite. Immaculate uses every second on that screen.
You might say it's immaculate. That's all I'm saying. It's like perfect. I love that movie.
That movie was great. Secondly, Immaculate takes the same concept and instead the reveal is it's not supernatural at all.
I know.
This is the evil of man.
I know.
And for me, that works so much better, not just as a metaphor, but practically within the movie works better because I'm like, yes, this could happen because this guy is a predator. Like, that is what is happening.
1,000%. 100% agree. The one difference is this movie takes place in a reality, or in a world, I should say, that already exists.
Right.
And so you have to live within the quote Omen universe where supernatural is a thing. So, like, I feel like they were sort of tied into that a little.
But here's the thing. A theme in the original Omen, if you remember correctly, is...
I won't.
It's fine.
Been so long since we've done that.
It has been a while.
But yes, please continue.
Is it occurring psychologically? Is it really happening? Or is the baby evil?
Sure, yeah, okay.
Right? And this movie plays with that a little bit, where we have some questions of like, is it this? Is it that? But then it leans heavily into the supernatural. And in doing so, it tips its hand really, really early, where from almost mid first act, I was like, no, it's her and she's already pregnant.
Oh, I know.
They telegraph it so obviously. So that makes the pacing problem worse, because then you're just like, I know. Let's get to it. Like, clearly it's her. Let's go.
On that specifically, you know so early on that she is the actual one who's going to give birth.
Yes.
That, like, every time she almost gets there, because it's like 3 or 4 times.
Yes.
I eventually, because I finished the movie in the room when I landed and, like, I came in here and I watched the movie. I was like leaning in when she would get close and I'd be like, say it. Just say it.
Just say it's you.
And she eventually got there and I was like, there you go.
Finally.
She got there.
It takes her almost 100 minutes of runtime to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And we still have 20 minutes left at that point.
We as the audience discover it 15 minutes in, maybe.
Yeah.
And so it's a long time of the audience being like, yeah, I know. Yeah, I get it. Yes. Whereas Immaculate, you're like, what the fuck is going on? And then it's like, oh, it's this. And you're like, okay, it's either supernatural or it's this guy being evil. And they're not going to answer it first because it doesn't fucking matter because he was evil no matter what. And it was like, it handles the overall message better because ultimately these two movies do have very similar messages.
Yeah.
And that is the church manipulating and disposing of women to their own ends. And the one thing that this movie does that I actually I felt stuck the landing was when they left the girl twin to burn.
Of course.
Because they were like, she's useless.
They don't care about that.
She's disposable. We don't need her anymore. I was like,
no, the Bene Gesserit had made the Kwisatz Haderach. They don't care about the woman.
Yes. And so there's like parts of this movie that I feel like are really effective, do really well.
Yeah.
And then there's other parts where I'm like, trim a half hour out of this and make your through line for their air quotes plan more clear. Because anytime they describe the plan, I'm like, this plan makes no sense. As opposed to Immaculate, where it's just this one guy going rogue.
Yeah.
And it's his crazy plan. And it's very clear in the movie that you're like, oh, he's a predator. And this is what this is. Like, we understand.
And he's just sort of hiding in plain sight within the church,
exactly.
But it's not like it's a sanctioned thing from the church.
Right.
Whereas in this one, there are 2 churches, both alike in dignity. In Italy, where we set our scene. Like, I don't know. It just seems so weird, but whatever.
Here's the weird thing. The beginning of that speech of there are two churches starts out really good.
Yeah.
And he's like, there are 2 churches. There's a church that you and I belong to that believe God loves everyone. We should help everyone. And we should be like propagating that love everywhere and trying to understand people and meet people where they are. Amazing.
You mean like Jesus did? Oh, cool. Yeah.
What? Great. Amazing. Yeah. And he's like, and then there's another church that is politically motivated in this and that. And you're like, oh yeah, no, okay, I get you. And then he's like,
yeah.
And that's why we have to birth the Antichrist, to raise the Antichrist, to use the Antichrist to scare people back to the church where we can fight the Antichrist that we then created. And you're like, I'm lost, man. I'm lost in this corn maze.
Paige, it's so easy. It's a Maxine. The bad church, which is sadly the church that most people recognize nowadays, is going to birth the Antichrist because they're like her dad and Maxine, like scaring people with the satanic panic to get them to donate to his church more.
Right, but then what are they going to do with the actual Antichrist they created? That's the part of the plan where it falls apart.
Oh, it's the ring. Like, it's if you look at like Lord of the Rings as a metaphor for life, like ultimate power is what that is. Corrupts absolutely. Like, that is their ring. If they do have the Antichrist, then sure, they may have church attendance go up for like 10 years, and then the Antichrist becomes a preteen and they start killing people.
Right.
Like, they're like, it's gonna shit the bed eventually, but like, they don't care long term.
Yes.
Because they're not thinking about that shit.
Well, and I think and maybe this is just me, because in my day life, I have had to deal with a lot of long-term planning things over the last few weeks. And that's where my brain is out of like, but what happens after? That in this movie, I was like, your plan has a flaw. And that is, it is very short term, as opposed to Immaculate, where I was like, your plan has a flaw. And that's that you're nuts and evil. And like, that's, but the movie seems to understand that. Whereas this movie is just like, isn't it a great plan? And I'm like, no.
But like in Immaculate, it is sort of a great plan if you are a Bond villain.
Right. If you're just a predator.
And that is sort of what the bad guy is.
Yeah.
He's just like a science-y Bond villain who hides in the cloak, right?
Right.
And then I guess Sydney Sweeney is the damsel in distress who doesn't need any fucking help, which I love. This movie, there are 2 churches. and I have to then differentiate which one's from who, but they all wear the same thing. Like, we need jerseys. Like, this isn't helping me at all. Like, maybe we should start calling the other politically motivated church something else entirely and then just move on.
Yeah, it would be nice. But I think as far as the metaphor and the point in the movie goes, because it's so outlandish and rooted in a supernatural realism, it muddies their waters a bit.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's way better in Immaculate because it is just like science, and they do sort of yada yada it.
Well, here's the thing. In Immaculate, he says it's all these sciencey things. I think he's just raping people. Like, it comes down to, like, it's science, and by science I mean I've assaulted many women. Like, that is what it is.
You know, for science, Paige.
For science. And the same is true in this movie, except in this movie they're like, it was an evil devil jackal raping women, and you're like, that's not better. But now it's weirder that you spent the money to make a digital flaming jackal at the end, and that did not help me at all.
Man, it took me forever to see it. I felt like I was trying to see a sailboat in one of those magic eye pictures.
Right, yes.
I was like, when I eventually saw it, I was like, man, I think y'all wasted a shitload of money on stuff. like on this. Like, this didn't even need to be there.
No, you could have cut this movie and cut that part out and made it, is it her or is it them? And is it like Immaculate and they are just assaulting women for their own gains and this baby is just a baby?
I mean, that is what is happening. It's just that they also have the jackal.
They also have the jackal.
Which, honestly, I've been enjoying. There's a TV show called The Jackal with Eddie Redmayne. Guys, check it out. And when he's in this movie and he's like banging down these nuns, it is a real nice.
No,
he's not the jackal in this. That's a myth. Like, right? That's not real.
Also, only if the nuns consent would that be awesome. But in this, no, they have a crazy hood that would definitely really hurt you if you left that on.
Yeah.
There's like directions on every plastic bag to not do that.
Well, it's not a plastic bag. It's like...
I know, but it's still not good.
It's like lacy.
Yeah, I think you can breathe through it, but they do tighten it around their neck. And so, like, it don't seem safe from my understanding of the kinkeries.
Yeah, ask David Carradine. I don't know. But, like, Paige, I don't know. I guess ultimately for me, this movie, because we did Immaculate recently,
right,
it felt like a copy of that. And I don't mean to say it was. I don't feel like there was at all like any sort of copying of one of another.
No, I don't think it was. I think it was parallel thinking.
Yeah, I think parallel thinking is more what's happening, especially if they're both in production at the same time.
Yeah.
Because those scripts got written around the same time. You know, like the production schedules are like a nightmare and you just don't know what you're making until, I don't know.
Yeah.
All of that to say, this movie did have some like creepy imagery that like Immaculate didn't have. Mm-hmm. It had a lot of the like the Omen stuff that really messes with me. Like the spiritual horror like really fucks with me. And this one had way more jump scares. I don't remember what I gave Immaculate, but this probably was scarier watching it. And the guy who I kept bumping next to me would agree.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I don't remember what I gave Immaculate either. I think I enjoyed Immaculate more than I was scared of Immaculate.
I couldn't wait to scream about Immaculate. There's some things in this I can't wait to scream about too, but like a lot of like the cutaway imagery really freaked me out. Like I didn't like it. Like all the way down to like Pope Ferratu, who like we just like see.
Yeah, Pope Ferratu, who just shows up occasionally.
Yeah.
Well, and then they do the hereditary thing of things popping out of shadow corners, which I know gets you real good.
Oh man, when she stood up, that burned lady and like laughed over at her.
And just screams at her, yes.
Ugh, I hated it.
But I was like, did we have to just redo the exact same hanging, just add fire? Like, that doesn't make it unique enough, I guess. They even do the window break.
I know.
It's like the same exact, like, shot for shot.
I know. I have a note in that scene because we'll get to it. But
okay.
I kind of liked it, but only because it is an Omen movie. Like, I feel like if you take the Omen stuff out of this, it just becomes Immaculate. So like they had to throw the Omen stuff into it, and that is what makes it in the franchise. So like I don't dislike it, but it is the same. Like it's all for you. Like all of that was exactly the same, more or less.
Well, it made me feel the same way as one of my very few notes for Alien Romulus of get away from her, you bitch. I'm like, that's Ripley's. You don't need to take it, you know?
You also don't need, I mean, and who was she saying it to, I guess, is the question. And why would she have said that? But I mean, there's like, I don't know. I do have a lot of questions having watched this movie, but I don't know. I mean, I'm sure we'll go through it as we go through the movie page. But
yes.
I do think that there's a percentage of if you have this much runtime of your movie at a convent with just nuns.
Sure.
Like if you hit 93% or whatever, you should be required to like have Sister Act songs in it. Like it's just too much time at a convent with no singing. And I do think Sister Act 1 and 2 broke my brain as a kid. Like, you guys had Glee.
Right.
I had Sister Act. You know what I'm saying? Come on.
Sister Act 2 was playing at Vidiot's over Thanksgiving weekend, and my sister and I could not go see it because we were getting tattoos instead. But, like, the next time that one comes around, I would love a double feature of 1 and 2 because they are very different movies. 1 is a crime drama comedy kind of thing.
It's a gritty crime drama. Yeah, I love
crime drama. And then the second one is a full out musical. And like, I love them both. There's room in my heart for both Sister Act 1 and 2.
Much like there's room in my heart for both The First Omen and Immaculate. I do think they're both good movies.
I don't think I'll revisit this one. I think I will cackle my way through Immaculate again.
I will watch the rock scene more times than I care to admit.
That's fair. I have some notes about the breaking water scene in this movie versus The Rock, and we'll get to it. Because I felt like they tried to pull an Immaculate and it was not as successful, but boy, did it happen. And we'll talk about it when we get to it. I think for me, I think I just loved Immaculate so much that I was like, on this. But it's not a bad movie. It's not bad. It's just...
No, it's not.
It's like if you had an incredible steak and then somebody handed you, like you went to Norm's or Denny's and got a steak and you were like, I mean, this is still steak. I enjoy the meat, but this is not the filet that I had yesterday. And so I can't help but compare them. I don't know.
I really love that you went to, I enjoyed the meat.
I enjoyed the meat.
But,
the meat.
I mean, yeah.
It's like, oh no, here's the perfect comparison. It's like if I go to a restaurant and I'm like, yeah, I'll have a Diet Coke, and that's Immaculate. And they're like, is Pepsi okay? And I'm like, no, but I'll drink it. No, but I'll drink it. And for me, this movie is Diet Pepsi, where it's like, if it's what they have, I'll drink it and I'll be fine. But Diet Coke would be my preference every time.
That is so accurate. But perhaps we should explain how accurate it is.
Sure.
It is while we're going through this movie scene by scene.
It's inaccurate.
It is immaculate.
We open on bells.
Ga-ga.
Yes. But a dude setting up scaffolding with stained glass windows where you're like, those are definitely going to break momentarily.
Oh, Tyrion's dad gets it right in the dome. It's like he's a villain in the movie Ghost.
Oh, that's right.
The stained glass window page. You don't take it with you.
You don't take it with you because it's broken. But we open on like confession where he's like, this is the only thing I have, and gives him like a picture, and he's like, but they definitely bred the Antichrist and you got to figure out something, and it's like not human. And we're like, okay, when does the sexy part of this confession happen? Because we've watched Fleabag too many times. But then they come out.
Well, he doesn't come out. So like, it is, it's Tyrion's dad, and it's Father Brennan. Is that
Father Brennan is the one that's in the rest of the movie. Yeah. So he doesn't hear anything on the other side, and then he looks and the other confessional is empty, and so he kind of like walks out into the courtyard where Tyrion's dad is like, I'm just waiting for it to be all over, and thus it is.
Well, because the stained glass above them like breaks.
Well, a piece of the scaffolding falls through the stained glass and like shaves through the back of Tyrion's dad's head, and he's like, perfect, I'll just be on my merry way. And you're like, no, dude, you're cleft in twain. That's gonna be a problem. And then my biggest note for this movie happens, and that is the insane score. The score is so crazy, so insanely crazy. And also, I should say that as they're talking about this, we got flashes of what that creepy birth looked like.
Yes.
But just flashes of it.
Right.
Yeah. But literally, we reveal that part of his head is gone, and then the score is... like, it sounds like a light up skeleton at Spirit Halloween, and it happens so often through all of it, literally the whole movie. It's the Dune score of this movie.
How
like
dare
anywhere
you. The Dune score is actually great.
No, anywhere that you would have the
Yes, but yes, no, you're right. You're right.
In this movie, you get a and it's crazy. It's one of the craziest choices they make.
Paige, can I read you what I wrote in my notes?
Yes.
No joke.
Yes.
The score sounds like someone's tickling a ghost. I'm not even joking. Yeah. Yeah. It's like a ghost is running scales.
Oh, it's Kathy Najimy in Sister Act 1. Come out of the rafters.
We got to move on.
We didn't watch Sister Act 1 and 2 today, although we could have and should have.
Agreed.
But Rome, 1971. And I was like, ooh, a period piece. I did not know how right I would be.
I'm pretty sure there are no periods in this movie.
Well,
it's a plot point.
That's fair. We pick up where they're picking up a new nun from the same airport that Sydney Sweeney was at.
Literally.
In literally the same room. I was like, this is shot for shot immaculate right now.
Yeah.
Which was wild.
I also love that it's like the Leonardo da Vinci airport, which I'm sure that's what it's called. But like, think if your airport was named after something that fucking baller.
It
like,
is.
Yeah. Every airport's named after someone from that city, right? So like my airport's not called fucking Leonardo da Vinci. Like
it's the Leonardo da Vinci airport.
That's amazing.
Well, and that's like when I was at UC Irvine, we used to often fly out of the John Wayne International Airport.
Yes, exactly. So you guys had John Wayne.
Or the Bob Hope Airport.
Exactly. So you have John Wayne, you have Bob Hope in LA. Rome has fucking Leonardo da Vinci. Like that's awesome. Yeah.
That is awesome. I did not realize that was the airport.
I'm pretty sure ours is the Jelly Roll International Airport in Nashville.
If it's not, it will be. Anyway, they pick up a new nun at the Leonardo da Vinci airport. And everyone seems cool, especially because it's Bill Nye. And you're like, oh, Love Actually.
I did write also in my notes, dude, did that British rock star become a cardinal? Hang on.
Oh my God.
Which is a Love Actually reference.
Christmas is every day. It's all around us. That's what it was.
I know. And Paige, I am like, this hotel is done up like a Christmas village. When I locked myself out of the room, I had to walk in my sweatpants and the Darkness t-shirt. I had to walk through families pushing strollers around dressed up because they are on a night out with their family. And I'm just like, hey, I'm just an asshole who forgot and locked myself out of my room. Pardon the bare feet.
Pardon these talons with which I climb up walls.
Did I mention it was a 12-minute walk one way?
But for you, only 6. Because when you get up to top speed, you really grip in that ground.
Oof. The other thing is I am a fast walker. I do move with purpose. You're right.
Anyway, it seems like everything's cool. They're taking her to her new convent. We meet her driver, Luca.
Yeah, there's like a protest on the way that like sort of comes back in a weird way. But yeah, it's like it boils over into a riot, but it's just at protest stage here at this point.
It's just at protest level now. But this is part of the plan later that I don't think super works because it's portrayed as like the counterculture movement in Italy, where it's like this is a workers' rights protest, but the students and the younger people have latched onto it as a counterculture movement. And that is like it's one of the catalysts for their plan, even though they've been doing their plan for like 20 years, where they're just like, the kids aren't listening to us nowadays, which to me, it was like, so you started with beatniks and then things just got worse. And you're like, now is the time. Now is the time for the Antichrist. Y'all.
I mean, but that is the reason he gives for we need to create an actual demon.
Yeah.
So that people will come back to church. We molested so many kids, guys. We got to win this trust back. And the only way to do that is to bring back an actual demon.
Actual demon. But also, y'all need a task management system like Asana or Monday.com or like something that can track the phases of your plan and the different blockers therein to make sure you accomplish your objectives in a timely manner.
Just get a Gantt chart going at least, guys.
Yeah.
Anyone else got their project management certification? Any nerds out there? Nope. Okay, whatever.
Yep. Anyway, she meets Mother Superior, Sister Silva, the abbess, and she kind of introduces her around and is like, this orphanage houses only girls, and there's 62 of them, and it's babies all the way up to 18 years old. And also, we have a hospital for unmarried women to give birth. We will basically help them through, I would assume, the adoption process, which if you want some really sad history, go look into that shit. Or don't if you want to go through your day and not sob.
Yeah, I was going to say. It's real dark stuff.
It's real dark stuff. Anyway, they at least have a hospital service there with real doctors, it seems. But I also love that they, real early in, right now, they're layering in like that she's seeing like priests talking in secret. And one of them is just smoking a fat cigar. And I was like, this is definitely Italy. Like, this is the most Italian priest I've ever seen. But this is also where she meets Sister Angelica, who in these scenes seems to be just, air quotes, spooky, just kind of general spooky vibes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when we first see her, she is like halfway down the stairs, but like looking up at nothing. And so we're like, okay, so this person's like, there's something wrong with her.
Yeah, real cat energy.
That's actually very accurate. Yeah, like, I guess you're around, cool, but I'm going to do my thing. Like, she's in her own movie, I guess.
Yeah.
And, like, we're just lucky she's coiled up in any beam of sunlight she can find throughout this movie, in her opinion.
Yeah, just looking at corners for ghosts that aren't there. Real cat shit. Anyway,
yeah.
She walks by a cork board of a bunch of drawings, and as she does, one of the kids screams, and Mother Superior's like, I'm going to go check that out. I'll be right back. You stay here. And she looks at all these drawings, and they are disturbing. They seem to depict a lot of like one lady floating and other kids on the ground and like blood, fire, things that make you worry about a child.
Yeah. And I do think it's funny that like they show a ton of drawings, right? And like almost all of them are like colorful or whatever. And then they show us one in the middle that is like just black and white. And the drawing is like more or less the same as every other one. It's just in black and white.
Right.
And I was like, okay, so Carlita's not any weirder than all these other girls. She just couldn't find a different color.
She just didn't have
like,
orange.
That's not weird. I'm sorry that no one would share colors with her, but like we already know they don't like her very much. So it makes sense.
Look, she's too dangerous to be trusted with colors.
God help you if she finds a red.
Green makes her violent. I don't know.
Well, don't bring her here because there's tons of red and green. This whole place is done up for Christmas.
She just gets there and just starts shaking and twitching. And they just cover her in tinsel. Anyway, so Sister Margaret, goes into what we will find out is the bad room, which looks like my first studio apartment. And she goes in and Carlita is just like drawing on the floor and she's just like, hi, like, are you singing Hail Mary? Like, are you drawing? I like to draw. She's just trying to be friendly. And I do think it's odd that everyone is like, hi, Carlita. Like, she's a child, but Carlita's fully like fifth fucking teen. Like, she's like a teenager. And they're just like, she bit one of the other children.
I mean, yeah, I definitely think they're playing it like there's something mentally wrong with her.
Right,
like,
right.
Because they do sort of infantilize her more than I think you should of someone of that age. Although I'm not sure they ever tell us her age. So I think I'm just guessing because she looks 15 or 16.
She looks 15 or 16.
Yeah.
You could go as low as like 12 or 13, but I think that's a stretch. She looks 15 or 16.
She does. And I'm going to ask a very sad, dark question. But if she was 15 or 16 and had already started that cycle,
sure.
I think they would have already started trying to pump a baby out of her.
That is true. But that is, and it's different for everybody. For me, it was 11. So like, like it doesn't, so yeah, I don't know.
I'm still waiting.
Yeah. And I mean, you should get that checked out, but they do say she's too young. They do. And that is the reason they brought Margaret out.
Yes.
Is that they think that Carlita is too young, which I guess would suggest 11 or 12. I guess maybe older if it just hadn't happened yet. Maybe they were waiting it out and it didn't happen. And so they like called.
Yeah. Maybe this politically motivated church who is trying to bring back an actual demon draws the line at having sex with a child, which Like, great.
Seems nuts.
But okay.
I mean,
especially because we know they don't.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, but like, yeah, so she's somewhere between, I'll say 12 and 16, which again, that is normal. Some people go a little later, but like typically.
Yeah.
But I think maybe they just didn't want to wait. And they were like, we can't, there's riots. Anyway. And so Margaret kind of calls her over and she like crawls under the bed like the girl from The Ring.
Paige, I really like a lot of cinematography in this movie, so I'm going to point a few things out. And this is one of the ones I'm going to point out because she walks in, Mother Mary Marguerite or whatever her name is, and she walks in and she's like calling her over and is like trying to be all sweet and nice. And it's shot very much like you would shoot a teacher meeting a student kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then as she crawls under the bed and slowly crawls at her, the camera angle reaction shots on Margaret are slowly pushing in on her and disorienting you a little bit as they turn.
At an angle, yeah, they turn.
Yeah, I loved the way the moment the filmmakers were like, you should feel this is a creepy moment. And it is, man. It's really effective at making it feel creepy. And you feel like it, because the camera is like pushing in on her like the slow crawl of Carlita is. And I thought it was just so well done. I loved it.
It was, and essentially Carlita gets out from under the bed, lunges at her and licks her face. And then Mother Superior shows up and is like, are you behaving, Carlita? And you're like, of course not. No, this is a horror movie.
I'm out here licking faces, bitch. What are you thinking?
Look, you got a face. I'm going to lick it. Whose face do you want to lick? Like, besides Natalie.
I knew I was going to have to talk about this.
Of course. You should have an answer prepared at all times.
Paige, you have no idea what you've unearthed here.
Wait, no. Did you actually, like, think about this?
Paige, think about it. I went through a phase where I licked people's faces all the fucking time.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that you were a licker.
I have so many pictures of me licking faces. My ex-girlfriend, I have tons of pictures of me licking her face. Like Twitch followers, like people who just followed me on. Yeah, it was, Paige, it was a problem for a while. And as a former, like as a face licker, I'll say this, Paige, the fact that they position it as creepy, I did not love in this movie.
You're like, hey, some of us like it.
But looking back on it, it always was creepy, and I should never have done it. But I was young and stupid, I guess. Like Carlita.
Yeah, there you go.
We've all been there. All I'm saying, Carlita, is we've all been there. We've all gone through the licking other people's faces phase.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely all of us gone through that.
How dare you? There are dozens of us, Paige. For sure there are dozens of us.
Okay, but like again, if you're picking one face that you're like, I'm going out on this one. This is the last face I gotta lick. Who is it?
Abraham Lincoln. Are you serious? That's so easy.
Now?
Wait, okay. I didn't know if I thought you meant like if we could bring anyone to life and do that.
I said nothing about life or death. I said if you're going out, it's the last face you'll ever lick. Who you lick it?
Okay, then I got to change my answer then. Are you ready?
Yeah, I think you do.
Dead Abraham Lincoln.
Great answer. For freedom, I assume. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
I want to feel that beard turn to ash in my mouth. I'm going to lick it from chin to top of 10-gallon top hat.
You're going to score on Abraham Lincoln's corpse. Oh, God.
I hate everything that we stand for and are.
So we meet the driver, Luca, who seems to be a neutral player.
We also met him because he picked her up at the airport with Bill Nighy.
Yeah, we just didn't talk to him. This time we're actually like meeting him.
Yeah. He was like, hey, I'm looking for you. And then that was it because he like handed her off to Bill Nighy and he just drove. But yeah, we're sort of getting to know him in this scene.
Yep.
And he does play sort of a small, but I think very pivotal part. Because he sort of saves them. I mean, whatever. We'll get there.
Well, he saves them by driving them secretly because Father Gabriel is the one that actually saves them. But anyway.
Fair. Yes. Yeah.
So he takes her to her apartment because she doesn't live at the orphanage. She lives in this apartment with another novitiate who is Luz that we will meet briefly. And Luz is like, look, before I go full nun, I'm going all out. Woo! Bow, bow, bow. Like, let's go. I read a sexy book like that one time.
What was it called, Paige?
Sinner. It's the sequel to Saint by Sierra Simone.
There's too many S's involved in the title and authorship of that book, so I refuse to read it.
My smut girls know what's up. My smutty girls know what's up.
Your smut sisters, Paige. It has to be continuing the S theme.
Mm-hmm. My smisters. Yes.
Yeah. Spark something uncommon this holiday with just the right gift from Uncommon Goods. If you haven't finished your holiday shopping yet, or like me, have yet to begin, I've got a secret source for incredible original gifts, and that's Uncommon Goods. They've got unique, hand-picked gifts for everyone on your list, all in one spot. Gifts that spark joy, wonder, delight, and that's exactly what I wanted type feeling. You know what I'm saying? Somehow they know exactly the perfect gift for every single person you know. So skip the gifts that scream last minute and find something truly original at uncommongoods.com. Here are some of my favorite things that I found on this site, and I hope Natalie's listening. So, okay, guys, there's this cool throwback speaker with Bluetooth radio that I thought was awesome because it looks like an old speaker, from back in the day, from 1920s back in the day. It looks really cool. I'm into it. Also, I'm a workaholic, so they also had this really cool adjustable laptop desk that I could use. So I could always be working. Anyway, so those are some great things you could get me. I'm just saying, whatever. It's clear when I was going through their site just now that Uncommon Goods looks for products that are high quality, unique, often handmade, or made in the US. They have the most meaningful, out of the ordinary gifts anywhere. To get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/horrorvirgin. That's uncommongoods.com/horrorvirgin to get 15% off. Don't miss out on this amazing limited time offer. Uncommon Goods, we're out of the ordinary.
Today, the LGBTQ+ community is at a crossroads, with our loved ones and hard-won rights increasingly under attack. For decades, the Human Rights Campaign has been at the forefront of the fight for equality in the face of discrimination and harassment. With the support of people like you, HRC fights for a world where lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people can live openly and thrive, free from fear. If you're ready to support the fight for equality, to donate today, visit hrc.org/give. That's hrc.org/GIVE.
Whose face would you lick, Paige?
Oh, God, where do I start?
Probably at the abs if I know you.
I was going to say it was shoulder, chin. Which way we going? Jawline? Oof. There's a lot. There's a lot of people I would lick. Reacher, absolute. Captain America, definitely. Sebastian Stan, you name it. Winston Duke. Oof. Yeah. If you're shouldery, I'll lick your face. I mean, probably not, because I'm married. I have to go lick my husband's face.
Don't say it like it's a chore, Paige. Look forward to licking your spouse's face.
He's not he's got a lot of beard in the way, and he's like, please don't lick my beard. The cat does that.
I should introduce your cat to dead Abraham Lincoln.
I think they'd get along pretty great. No, he'd probably just run away and scream. That's what he does.
I think Abraham Lincoln's getting more comfortable around cats. We should give him a chance.
Yeah. The cat's definitely going to sit still. It's the disembodied corpse that's just going to... Anyway.
Right.
So she is basically like, yeah, exploration is healthy. And, hey, I want to get out there. I want to lick faces. I want to do what I'm going to do, right?
Yeah.
But they exchange stories of how they came to be novitiates.
Yeah.
And so we get Marguerite's story, Margareta, her story of she grew up in an orphanage in Massachusetts, and a priest from her orphanage now works at this location, and he kind of invited her to come. And she was a problem child, and he kind of took care of her.
Yeah.
But I do love that she has daily affirmations every day. Thought those were great. But then we have Margareta, who's like, I was kind of a rough kid. I got thrown out of my house at 16. And I was homeless and cold. And then there was a warm wind and I heard the voice calling me. Now, we then cut to the next day. There's a lot of, and unfortunately, if I were editing these are the things I would cut, but I also did enjoy them in the movie. where it's a lot of just nuns having fun. Like if you've ever been to a Buca de Beppo and you look on the walls of the black and white photos, it's that, but it's in this movie.
I actually did sort of like the nuns giving each other like playful shit like you would your coworkers.
Absolutely.
I thought it was sweet. It really humanized them on some level, even though they are the villains. But you sort of love these moments.
Here's what I'll say. I don't know that all of them are, because Father Gabriel proves to not be a villain.
Sure, yes.
And I don't know how much the information is trickling down, right? So I think that some of these women are just nuns doing nun stuff and just asking a lot of questions. And then, unfortunately, Margareta is like, I have questions. And you know what we do with a woman with questions. Anyway, they have a little nun get together where they are basically playfully talking about banging the milkman before they became nuns.
Yeah.
Of like getting their teenage sexual education from the local milkman, and we should maybe question that man.
I don't think the milkman was his occupation. I think that was his like nickname.
I mean, I would assume it was the occupation because that's like a thing.
He's making deliveries, Paige.
Well, yeah. He could also just be a milkman.
Sure. And listen, he'd get away with it too. His wife would be like, what are you cheating on me? He'd be like, I didn't get none.
None. Anyway, she goes in to play with some of the younger girls, and they're trying to teach her Italian. And my very minimal Italian is very rusty. But even I understood that they did not teach her the right thing. A, because the words didn't match. But they tell her that she has said, I am a teacher who likes to teach. And there are no subtitles in this moment. But what they tell her to say is, sono una farfalle da volo volare. And I was like, well, farfalle is butterfly and volare is to fly, the verb. And I was like, I think it's not what they told her. And then later they will tell us exactly what she said.
Yeah, they do it for this moment. I don't know why this kid lies to her, though. Like,
well, here's the thing.
This kid knows what she's saying.
Yes, I think they're trying to do the thing of like, she doesn't know, ha ha ha, but then make her say something more fun than I'm a butterfly who likes to fly.
Oh, yeah. This is when you get your nun teacher to say some really gross, depraved sexual shit publicly.
So my sister briefly taught Mandarin in high school. I am probably going to butcher this, but the kids at one point taught her to say diaboule, which apparently meant fucking fuck yeah. I was like, that's great. You should use that. Diaboule. But I recently, my sister and I got tattoos, as I mentioned, and we're adding to the tattoo. But our tattoo is farfalle, and we were going to add the word volare to it. And I was like, serendipitous that I had to. Those are the two words I needed to know for this movie.
It's parallel thinking, Paige. That's what it is.
Parallel thinking. But yeah, it's healing up nice.
It is. It looks good. Yeah.
Anyway, so she gets interrupted because they're like holding Carlita down screaming, which is never a good thing. It's never great when someone's being held down and they're screaming. Someone, either the person held down or the people holding them, having a bad day.
Probably both, honestly.
Probably both. Nobody really wants to be doing that. But she like looks through the door and they're like, someone's at the door. So they close the door. She doesn't get to see anymore. And she turns and Angelica is right behind her, giggling and kind of crying at the same time.
Oh man, the way they switch from giggling to like crying so fast, like man, that emotional like flipping of a switch is
Flippity
like
floppity.
So creepy. Yeah.
It's gonna be zappity. We cut to, she goes home and Luz is like, I'm wearing a wig that looks incredible. Here is an outfit for you, and we're gonna go out and like you need to experience what it's like to feel beautiful, to know what you're actually giving up before you actually take these vows.
Yeah.
Which like, okay. And they go out to a disco, and it is 1971. So this is actually peak Euro disco.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they meet up with two men. Now we will eventually find out this was pre-planned.
You might say preordained, Paige.
Preordained,
yes.
And these dudes are in on it, but we don't know that at the time. And if you don't know that, you're like, I love Paolo. He's so cute. Like, they're very sweet together. And he eventually gives her a drink, invites her to dance. That drink is drugged, for sure, because that's the only drink we see her have.
It would have to be for what happens, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But before she passes out, they're dancing and everything. And he puts his hands in her hair, which oddly, hot. But ask before you do that.
Of course, get consent. Yes, absolutely. I mean, not that this movie cares much about that because they're bad guys. But like, it could be hot. Yeah. I think he's feeling for the mark.
He is feeling for the mark. We won't know that till later.
Right.
But I have a pretty strict rule of like, you can only touch my hair if you gave birth to me, like you're my parents or grandparents. You're doing my hair, like you're actively styling it.
I'm paying you to.
I'm paying you to, or somebody else is, but you're styling it for something.
Right.
We're about to bang. Then you can touch my hair. But like if you're not in one of those categories.
But not during.
Oh, no.
Do not touch my hair during.
Oh, no. Do touch my hair during. But we have established, you know, that's, yeah.
Everyone can go ahead and check that off on the boxes of pages.
Oh, come on.
Likes.
If you didn't know that was already included, you ain't been paying attention. That's all I'm saying. But I did think I was like, this is actually kind of hot. But then later you're like, oh no, he was in on it the whole time.
She also licks his face on the dance floor. So like,
love it. Hot.
Face lickers lick other people's faces. Like, I get it. It's like, it happens.
Mm-hmm.
But Paige, I thought it was nuts that this movie, in that moment where he is pinned up against the wall, gave her so much strength that she could rip his upper torso off the lower torso.
Okay, so I think he was already severed.
No, there's no way that, no.
He would still be very heavy.
Yes.
Because he'd be dead weight. Literally.
Literal dead weight, Paige.
Poor Paolo.
That would be like carrying a fucking 100-pound sack.
Yeah. Oof.
Anyway, he deserved it, it comes to find out. But we don't know that when it happens.
Yeah, no, for sure. But we don't know that when it happens, so we feel really bad for him.
Yeah.
But she wakes up, there's a spider on her face. Hate that. And her hair is all spidered out, which is nuts.
There's too many spiders in this, and one of them goes into some nethers. I did not care for it. At all.
Yep. But she wakes up and Luz is like, oh, don't worry. I intervened before things got too bad, but definitely implying that she and Paolo had sex and that she caught them mid-act. Because after this, Margareta is like, she does not take it okay. Like, she's like on the floor of her room crying. It's not good. So.
Yeah, I wondered what the secret was because she's like, I got to tell you a secret. And then it cuts to that.
It says it'll be our little secret is what she says.
That's what I mean. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like.
So here's the thing because Luz knows what actually happened.
Right.
But I think that she is letting Margaret believe that she and Paolo had sex.
Right.
And I would assume Margaret's a virgin and does not remember. And that would probably be very, and here's the thing. Yes, I know he is drinking also. And as far as the information we have in this scene, because we don't know that he's involved yet.
Right.
With just the information we have in this scene, what we have seen is two people get drunk and it ends. It's still not great if she doesn't remember it. Alcohol negates consent, right? So she has been assaulted. We know she's been assaulted later. Later, we know.
They show it.
They show it.
Yeah.
But before we know that, what we are seeing here is somebody coming to grips with the fact that they've been assaulted and not really necessarily having the language to express how that has made them feel. And she is not taking it well, but Luz is letting her believe that, I assume, so that she will then think it is either A, Paolo's baby, or B, once she starts to kind of see symptoms, won't think as much of it.
Yeah, probably.
Because she'll blame herself. It's a real, like, once we find out that Luz is involved, it's extra fucked up what she does here.
Yeah.
Basically allowing her to believe this. But anyway, she goes outside and she's just kind of chilling, you know, sitting in like the little courtyard. And this is where Father Brennan shows up and is like, hey, you're Margaret. You're new there. Can we talk? It's about Carlita. There's some bad things happening around her, but like, come see me tonight. Here's where I'm staying. And she's just like, yeah, no, okay, crazy. So she does not go see him that night. It is a few days before she goes.
Yeah, I mean, but it is crazy. Like, she doesn't know who that is.
Yeah, she has no idea.
And they know a lot about her for no seeming reason. So, like, that would weird me out, too. I wouldn't go.
Yeah, but she gets to class and good morning, Farfalla. Good morning, Butterfly. But she's like, hey, where's Carlita? And they're like, she's in the bad room. And so she confronts the other sisters of like, why are you locking her in the room? This is what used to happen to me. It's not good. it did not help my mental health.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, but okay, she is potentially a danger to the other students. And she's like, I don't think she is. I think you guys don't know how to handle her. So she pulls Carlita aside and they kind of bond. And I actually do really like this where she's like, I respect that you didn't try to run away, that you've stayed here to fight. But like, I was like you. I understand what you're going through. Like, talk to me when you're feeling bad. They have kind of a bond.
I mean, they are legit sisters.
Yeah, they don't know that yet, but yes.
I mean, at the end of this movie, she's raising her two sisters, one of which is her daughter.
Right. Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not good.
No.
Anyway, she, after sitting with Carlita, she hears a scream because the woman that we saw when we toured the hospital is going into labor. She runs over to view that labor. Now, this is real rough.
Yeah.
This is one of the most graphic birth scenes I think I've seen on film, especially because they also include the episiotomy part, which is, I had a bunch of friends who have had babies recently that they like don't do it anymore. They're like, no, they let you tear naturally. And I was like, that sounds awful. And they're like, yeah, I tore all the way to my anus. And you're like, good Lord, this is why I have a cat. But like, well, and they also do something that like seems weird, but my grandmother used to tell me stories about them doing this to her when she had my aunt and my mom. And for a brief period of time, they definitely do not do this now, typically. For vaginal births, they would knock you out. They would just anesthetize you.
Yeah.
Not for a C-section, for a vaginal birth. And that's not great because like you should be there pushing. Like that's usually what happens. But they put this lady on basically laughing gas. And what I think happens is that she had a normal child, that she just had a child. She was just one of the ladies. This was not one of the ones, but because she's watching it happen, this is what she perceives, even though it's not what happens, because we do see what seems to be a demon jackal hand emerge from the vaginal canal and grip at some stuff.
It's like a big ass hand. It's not like a baby hand. It's like Danny DeVito is the jackal and she's the couch.
Right.
Like it is like that size.
I want to be pure.
It was at that moment that I realized that the aisle seat was a terrible choice for the movie I had to watch on the plane, because I was like, oh, this is just a vagina and a hand coming out of it.
Right.
And I am in public. So I'm closing this immediately.
This is a lot.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, as much as I was like, I was like, what's going on? All right, they're really doing it, but then they didn't go full rock like Immaculate.
They couldn't go full rock because Damien is like a main character in the franchise.
Right.
You can't kill the Kwisatz Rock the second you make him.
Right. Plus, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was unavailable at that time. But
it's not that rock. Wait, what? Oh, you mean The Rock to kill him? Yes. Oh my God. Now I just want to see like a Damien versus just The Rock.
Just The Rock. Do you smell what the devil is cooking?
And he's just like throwing 5-year-old Damien around like it ain't shit.
But it's just like a dummy, like it's a kid dummy, but we're still hearing noises like, is that all you got, punk? Like I would love that. It'd be great.
Yeah, somebody get the guy who voiced Chucky. We'll make a whole thing of it.
Yeah, there you go. In my notes, I just have thrashing and screaming, and then in all caps, Jesus.
I know, Paige.
Which I know is where the hand came out.
Yeah, but it's not Jesus, though. It's not.
It's the opposite.
It's the jackal.
It's the jackal, but then they pull Margarita aside because she passes out, and they're like, you probably had low blood sugar. I was like, okay, yeah, or she saw a demon hand reach out of a lady.
Paige, you ever have low blood sugar and you hallucinate the scariest shit coming out of your vagina you could ever possibly imagine?
I mean,
that is not what happens when someone has low blood sugar.
Look, I mean, a hand would be a pretty scary thing coming out. I think scarier would be a chest burster.
Sure.
Because I'm like, you're not supposed to be down there.
My point is that like they don't use this kind of moment where like you're seeing the scariest shit imaginable coming out of a vagina and then cut to Betty White and be like, you're not you when you're hungry, eat a Snickers.
But what if they did?
And then like you watch it again and it's just like a regular birth. Like that is not what low blood sugar does, guys.
No, but I desperately wanted to now. R.I.P. Betty White.
Guys, can we get someone just to do a cutaway to Betty? Like,
you're
what?
Not here. You're not
So
you when you're
crazy.
hungry. But we cut to, she goes out into the courtyard after being told it was low blood sugar, and there's nuns on a trampoline. Love that.
It is just like the priest's show. You know what I'm saying? It's like they've got nuns on trampolines. Sorry, this is like a man show.
I just realized
whole
what you're getting at,
sidetrack.
and I was like,
Yeah.
the nunnies.
So we got nuns on trampolines. We got dudes down in holy water. They're just chugging it. We got guys playing organ. We got the altar boy. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, God, that would be probably very sacrilegious, but also entertaining. So I'm going to land on sacrilegious.
Let's do it. Guys, try my new bagel flavor, sacrilegious.
Sacrilegious. I have to credit The Simpsons with that because it's the one time where Homer prays to God and Marge is like, that's not God. That's a waffle that Bart threw up there 3 weeks ago, and then knocks it down with a broom. And Homer eats it and says, sacrilegious. And it's one of my favorite moments of all time.
Did anyone else wonder how long Paige has been sleeping on a solid Marge impression? Good God, that was great.
Oh, okay. So I can do a decent Marge. When I get sick, I can do an incredible Marge. And the sicker I get, the more it gets into Patty and Selma.
That tracks with how their voices sound. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a dial of like Paige, Marge, Patty, and Selma.
It's funny that like you have to get sicker to do the other ones.
Yes, I can't do it when I'm not sick. It requires damage.
For me to sound like Father Brennan, Ralph Inelson, I think is how you say his name. For me to sound like him, I have to like gargle nails. Like his voice sounds so raspy. It's nuts. I love it. He's got a great voice.
Well, and that's, I mean, I've done podcasts where you can hear what it sounds like when my voice gets rough. And that's when I can do Patty and Selma, just because it's that like, and it's that like, you need the, right now I can get to a Marge, but I can't get to the like, the deep Homer.
It's so good.
Anyway. So she goes out in the courtyard and she sees Carlita sitting there, and Angelica has her hand up her back, Carlita's back, in kind of a interesting way. And they seem to be whispering together.
Yeah.
And she kind of butts in of like, hey, what's going on? And sees what they're drawing. And they've drawn like a pregnancy thing with like a baby. And she's like, I don't think this is very appropriate.
I did think it was funny that like, the girl had like drawn the creepy like figures, like the mom figure and the other figures, and then the nun was like, "I drew all the creepy pregnancy baby
I
shit."
drew the babies and the weird fetus. It was me.
and then Margaret is like, "Yeah, well, that's weird as shit. Hang on, really?
Right?
That's inappropriate. That's inappropriate."
Well, and she like stands up, and it was at this point that we are like solidly over half an hour to 45 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
Like we're a decent point into the movie. And I was like, can we get to it? Like what is gonna happen, right?
I know.
And it's dragging, right?
Yeah.
But then Angelica pulls her in for a full mouth kiss. And she was like, what the fuck is that about? And then Angelica just goes off and she's like, okay, yeah, let's just go dance with the other little girls. But they're only gone dancing for like seconds, not nearly long enough for Angelica to douse herself in gasoline and parkour up 3 floors of the outside balcony to then get up there and do the "it's all for you" like same shit.
Sets herself on fire, jumps off, and she's hung herself, right?
And breaks the window.
Just like the First Omen, like it's exactly the same except she's on fire.
Right.
2 things.
Yeah.
Why does this 3rd floor balcony walkway have an opening in the railing? It is made with an opening in the railing? Why would you ever have that?
My only thinking would be if it was a really, 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 really old building in Rome, which it may be, that they would dump trash out. But typically you just go over the railing, right? But I guess if you wanted to sweep off the balcony, I guess.
I mean, but Paige, like...
I think it's just so that she can jump.
Yeah, like it makes it look so, oh, this is just a movie to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it's like silly. I don't know. You would definitely have a rail there. Anyway, I mean, there's a rail all the way over to where she is, and it just like curls down into the base. Whatever. Also, the transition between this scene and the next scene. Okay. Because she hits the window and it breaks, right?
Right.
She then, because the inertia of her fall, She then hits it 2 more times.
Right.
Here's what I think would be cool. Say it's 3 p.m. When she jumps, it's 3 p.m. We hear the first bell strike of 3 when she hits the window on fire.
Right.
And then out of time, because it slows down because she's swinging less, we hear the bell strike every time, and then it slowly transitions into the night scene, and we get 3 more chimes that echo after it to signify this is now 3 at night or 3 a.m. or whatever. But then we would get 6 chimes that like transition us between scenes. It would have been very creepy. I was like, that's the way I would have done it.
Well, but then it could have been 6.
Well, it would have been 6. It's 3 on one side and 3 on the other.
No, I know. But I mean, it could be 6 p.m. because you've just heard 6 consecutive chimes.
I know, but it's 3 p.m. here and then 3 a.m. on the other side. So it's 6.
Right.
But you know it's night because it's like dark out.
Right. But she goes to the priest's house. Priest's house? Yes. Priest's house. And she's like, okay, tell me what you know. And he shows her the photo and he's like, the baby in this photo is Carlita. But this is where he outlines what their plan is. And I'm like, this needs to go back to the drawing board. We need to story circle this again. The motivations are unclear. The end point is not clear. And it is a bit of a stretch to think that they were like, the world needs to come back to church. What'll make them do that? The Antichrist. It's just odd, Todd.
Paige, it made complete sense to me. Like, this is what they do.
I understand in that sense.
They create boogeymen to scare you into going to church.
That part I understand. However, there's no end game. And that's the part that bothers me, is that they're like, step 1, get Antichrist. Step 2, use Antichrist to get people back to church. Once they're back to church, step 3, kill Antichrist.
Step 3 is always profit. The problem is step 4 hasn't been thought about.
Right.
And step 4 is where the shit hits the fan. Step 4 is like late stage capitalism or whatever. Like there's always a step 4 where absolute power corrupts absolutely. But they don't give a shit, and they are not thinking about that. And that felt to me so accurate to what those people are like today.
Yes, and I guess you could argue that, like, in the version of this that exists today where people create boogeymen and unleash them, they cannot control those boogeymen past a point, and they don't care.
Right.
Because my thinking is, like, from a Bible person, I'm like, you can't control the Antichrist. Like, what makes you think you could use him for anything? You can't control him. He's the Antichrist. That's a flaw in the plan. But by that point, they've already gotten the prophets. I still think it's weak from a story perspective.
I think it made sense to me, though. I was like, I get this completely. They're just doing Christianity.
Yeah, or many religions. They're not the only ones that do it. But
I know, but it's like that's the version they're sort of poking fun at here, I think.
I guess. I think for me, I needed a more grounded plan.
That would have felt very unlike reality to me.
No, because like
if they had like a solid end game for the Antichrist.
Well, no, what I want, and I guess this is why I like Immaculate more. I want Immaculate where the plan is just a guy. And this being like the Antichrist is real. All of this is real. And we're going to try and control supernatural forces. I'm like, that's just dumb. Like, this is a bad plan.
It is a bad plan.
But oh, well, I mean, hey, they're the villains, so they can have bad plans all they want, I guess. But this is where she's like, oh, man, this sounds crazy and like a bad plan. I'm out. And he's like, just look for the mark of the devil. And she's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that, but okay. So she goes, or he tells her to look for her birth date in the files of the orphanage. He needs to find out if she was born on June 6th.
Yeah, look for the mark is something else.
Well, he says look for the mark here, too.
Yeah.
Because he tells her about it. But look for the mark on Carlita is what he's saying.
Yes.
And this is where he also is like, by the way, it's not human. It's a jackal. That's the father. So there's a weird bestiality element to this, too. But is it a real jackal or is it a demon jackal? Is that better? No. Like, I don't know. It's some sort of dog penis situation.
They show it.
I know. I don't like it. Why this dog got hands?
I mean, it's a jackal, Paige. I don't know.
Jackals are basically dogs.
They don't exist in reality. I have no idea what they've got going on.
Jackals are a real animal.
Well, yeah, but not like in this sense. Not like in the spiritual, supernatural sense they don't exist.
No, but when they use them in Revelation, it's to imply bestiality. It's like to debase somebody is like why it's a jackal, because it's like you fucked a dog, basically. But in this, they're like, it's a jackal. That's why it's a demon. And I'm like, okay. But this is why the supernatural shit gets murky, because then I have questions, as opposed to the Immaculate, where I'm like, it's that guy and I have no questions. Perfect. Perfect outline. Good job, guys.
But like most people, even people who profess to be Christians like you, don't know that shit, Paige.
I
like
know.
They're just like, yeah, jackal or whatever. Just like came out, jackaled off, and like bounced, and like she's pregnant now. Don't even worry about it.
But read the shit is all I'm saying. It's good for everybody.
Paige.
To read it and understand it before you believe it.
Paige, read?
I know.
What?
I know.
Your best bet is to get an influencer to talk about it on TikTok.
Which I hate, because they often get shit wrong, and then I get a million DMs of like, do this on Cult Podcast. I'm like, I can't, because literally we'd be sued for libel, and that person probably should be too. Anyway, so she gets back to the orphanage, and she's like, I'm not gonna believe this, but I am gonna check into some stuff about Carlita just to find out some stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna look into it.
She's on the bus, and they're going on like a field trip. Real Madeline energy. All the little girls in their little coats and hats.
Voila, the mark of the beast.
Yes. But Father Gabriel, she sits next to Father Gabriel on the bus and is like, hey, can I ask you about Carlita? Like, do you know how she came here? And he's like, that's not my area. And we will find out later it's because he's already been asked.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to be involved, and Mother Superior is watching. I do love the cool old-timey bus that they drive around in.
Yeah, it was cool.
It is cool. Anyway, they take Carlita out, and they're in like a museum. And in the distance, we see the protest kind of forming behind them.
Yeah.
But she pulls Carlita aside and does what any mandatory reporter should do. This is a good thing, because she pulls Carlita aside and is like, you can trust me. I just want to make sure you're okay. Basically, have you been molested? Like, has anything happened to you? And she's like, well, sometimes I see things like hallucinations. And this is a moment where they kind of bond. And she's like, I saw this too, but then I realized it was a lie. We'll find out it was not a lie. She was actually seeing shit.
Yeah.
And Carlita's like, it's not a lie, and walks off. And she then kind of follows her and finds her on this bench and thinks that she sees somebody sitting next to her with their hand on her back. And it is Angelica, and it is a jump scare for her being the dead sister. And literally, as soon as we're like, oh my God, she turns and Mother Superior has her hand on her shoulder and is like, there's a riot. We've got to go.
Yeah.
We got to leave right now.
This part scared the shit out of me.
Carlita's fucking gone.
Yeah.
She just ran, and she makes it to the bus. But Margareta does not see that. And so she gets caught in the crowd. And unfortunately, sometimes when a crowd is out of control and you are a woman alone, it's not a good place to be.
Nope.
And that is what we see here, because she gets groped multiple times. And I would say experiences like a traumatic break a little bit, where she starts imagining that the hands that are groping her, because she is being groped and assaulted in real ass life, she imagines that some of them are the devil jackal hands, and has a full-on freak out, because who wouldn't?
I think this is her like sort of remembering the trauma of the night she was like assaulted. Like, yeah.
Yes, I think it's a PTSD flashback. Yes.
Same.
Yes.
But we see like what looks like a tongue of the jackal licking her face, Paige.
But really it was just Todd's tongue.
I know. I was like, is this what I looked like when I was doing this?
A little bit.
I'll have to post a photo. I'll have to you guys see so you guys can see. I've got photos of me doing it.
I'm good. Anyway. So she gets on the bus. They get back. She gets pulled into the, like, after the nightly prayer, she gets pulled in Mother Superior's office, Sister Silva. And she's like, hey, have a seat. We're pretty concerned about your mental state, and maybe you should postpone your vows. And we're worried about your attachment to Carlita. Maybe stay away from her. And this is just making your mental health worse.
Yeah.
And which transference is a thing. Absolutely. So like, They had if this was not a supernatural thing and they were all evil, they actually do have a right to be concerned, and they probably should be. But also they're evil, and so like they put her in that room, and she's like she is having a little bit of a mentee bee.
Yeah,
and she leaves the room. This isn't where they put her in the bad room. That's like 2 scenes from now. But she runs out. She's like, I'm not wrong. I'm not sick.
Yes.
I'm leaving. And she leaves and goes out and walks basically back to her apartment on the streets and runs into Paolo. And Paolo is terrified of her.
Yeah.
And she's like, what happened? I don't remember anything. Please talk to me. And as he kind of backs away from her, he backs into the street where he's hit by a car and pinned to the wall. Now, before he walks into the street, he tells her to look for the mark and gestures at the side of his head. Now, initially, we think Carlita, but how would he know that? It'll make sense in just a bit.
Yeah.
But he gets hit by that car and he's pinned and very clearly dying. And she's like, no, I'm so sorry. And tries to, it seems like, pull him out from the car, but he gets cut in half.
Yeah, I was like, what?
And we never address this again. She doesn't go to the police. She doesn't talk to anybody about it. We just like cut to, she's back in her apartment praying and just in the background. It's
someone's back to tickling ghosts back there.
Yeah,
but I thought it was nuts that they like gave her superhuman strength for one scene as she rips this person in twain.
Right.
Like,
well, and
come on.
You would have to talk to the cops about that.
Yes, you would if you were like, oh yeah, so I came upon this guy who had been pinned and I thought, you know what they say, anytime you come upon an accident, the first thing you do is rip them in half.
Right.
What? You need to go to jail for, I don't know, accessory after the fact? I don't know. Like,
at this point, it made me question if it had actually happened.
Yes. I also wondered if, like Arrested Development, someone was teaching her a very elaborately staged lesson. But no, that is not what happened. There is no one-armed man or whatever.
But at this point, we cut to, I assume the next day, when they're cutting Luz's hair to get Luz ready for her vows. And at this point, I'm like, we're more than halfway through the runtime, and the story has not really picked up at this point.
Right.
It's a long time.
And I have to say this really quick. When they're putting the hood on Luz, the white one you put on first that like goes around your chin and stuff.
The habit, yeah.
Could they not get like one that was a little bigger? They're like really forcing her head in there. Like it looked painful. I felt bad for the actress.
I mean, I guess nuns in the comments sound off. I have heard from the handful of nuns I have talked to in my life that some habits are tighter than others, and they're like one size kind of. That's probably not the case, but I know they make a joke about it in Sister Act as well. So,
okay.
I don't know. But while they're having Luz take her vows and that ceremony is going, she runs down to the office, finds a secret door, goes into the file basement to find the file.
Yeah.
And at this point in my notes, I just put, let me guess, she finds her own file. She does. We just don't know that yet.
Yeah, I was like, that was the first time I was like, say it.
Say it.
And of course, because we know that she's going to find this file that it connects her to all of this.
Yes, she has to. She has to. And we also find out that there have been multiple attempts and they all have the last name Skiana. And I was like, oh, it's like James Bond. But all of them but one have died in childbirth, or so we think. We are about to find out something different.
Yeah.
But she comes up and tries to take Carlita away because she's going to try and escape with her. And as they get caught and they carry Carlita away, she sees the mark of the devil inside Carlita's mouth.
On like the roof of her mouth.
On like the roof of her mouth. So they put her in the bad room.
I hated the bad room.
The bad room is rough.
Yeah.
She finds Carlita's drawings and is like, oh no, and it's all horrible demon-y shit. And she's like, it's not real, it's not real. But then we hear a woman laughing and footsteps, and it is Angelica, all burned and stuff, screaming at her. Jump scare, and surprise, it's Father Gabriel. He's like, I found the files that you stole. We have to go. I know where to go. He takes her to Father Brennan.
Yeah.
Because Father Brennan came to him first to try and get these files. And now that he has them, they're going through them together, trying to figure it out. And they're like, well, if we're comparing these photos and we know this is Carlita, but then that photo is not Carlita, which means there must be two because Carlita's mark is on her mouth. This other baby's mark is on its head. So that means there's 2 babies. Where's the other baby? And they find the file. And I would assume that she looked at the file and realized it was her own birthday.
I mean, this is sort of when we learn it, though.
Yeah, she doesn't vocalize that, but I would assume.
Right.
And then we get basically a flashback to Paolo. And she's like, look for the mark. And she finds it on her own head.
Yeah.
And we get a flashback of what happened.
Oof.
And know that Paolo was a setup and he was sent to literally feel to see if she had it. And once he confirmed that she had it, he then delivered her to the assault that then results in her pregnancy. And Luz is there also. Luz was also part of the plan the whole time.
Yeah. Both of the guys they met at the bar were in the scene where she was being assaulted.
Right.
They were honestly just in the viewing gallery, which is gross.
Well, and I do like that as she looks, she sees the one guy who's like, yeah, but then she sees Paolo, who is stricken by the guilt of what he has done.
Yeah.
Which is why he ran from her earlier because he can't face it.
Yeah.
But he's like fucked up. He's like not doing okay.
But this is where we get the whole scene of the assault.
Yes.
They put that black sort of lacy mesh thing over her face and literally put something around her neck so they can tighten it and stuff. And then you just start to hear the jackal come out.
Yeah. And the spider and the hands and
the spider. Oh, I hated the spider because it was right on her belly and then goes.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. Anyway.
But this is where we do see the jackal dick.
Yeah. This is when we do see the jackal dick. It's unpleasant. Little red rocket action.
Ugh.
But she freaks out because,
like you would. She's remembering her very brutal assault.
Right?
Yeah.
And Father Brennan is like, I am so sorry. I'm sorry that this is happening to you, but it is June 6th and it is almost midnight and they are going to come for you. So we need to make some fucking choices.
Yeah.
And she says, if I'm pregnant, I need it out of me right now. And they basically drive her to what would be a back alley abortion, but they are being followed.
I thought it was crazy how quickly these Christians were like, you need to get an abortion, man.
I know, right?
100%. These guys were Catholics.
I know.
I was like, wow. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with them. I was just wow. They were like, yeah, you do have to abort this thing.
You do. We got to get it out of there.
Yeah.
And she does start having contractions in the car and barfing up slime. That's pretty gross.
Yeah, she's giving birth, Paige. That's what everyone does, from what I understand. I don't know.
Everybody barfs up slime.
Yeah.
But the car following them pulls off, so they think they're not being followed anymore. But what it does is cuts up a couple blocks, comes back, and T-bones them.
And fucking T-bones them, yeah.
Yes. And she wakes up in the street, seemingly kind of, and almost kind of evil. She looks a little...
Paige.
She's a little off at that point.
So this is another one of the shots that I loved, because it's a minute and a half of just her.
Yes.
And there's no breaks. There's no cutaways. And she is losing her goddamn mind.
But loving it, it seems.
And it is so good. The actress, who I think has been great. She's been great up to this point. In this scene, I was blown away by her. I was like, that's nuts. You're amazing. Those choices all worked, but were super ballsy. And the sheer endurance to do a scene for that long at that level of intensity in and of itself is hard. And to do it convincingly is another level of difficult. And she crushes it.
She does crush it. She does amazing in this. But it unfortunately invites comparison again to Immaculate.
Yeah.
Where we got that minute long of Sydney Sweeney just screaming into the camera. And I'm like, this ain't that. Now, granted, it is something else entirely. I don't hate it. I was here for the weird howling and growling and moaning and all of it. But at this point, and I was like, is she giving street birth to the Antichrist? No, I think her water broke.
Yes.
But at this point, I'm like, how is there a half hour left?
I know, Paige. I was like, oh, we got 10 minutes tops. And no, it's Return of the King, guys.
Yeah.
There's so much more left of this movie.
Because we cut to her basically chained down, and Cardinal Lawrence, who is the priest who brought her there, and she's like, I can't tell if this is real or not. And he's like, it is real, but don't worry. It's almost over. You're just going to go give a little quickie birth to the Antichrist, and then we'll be out of here.
Yeah, zip, zap, zap. We're going to get the baby out of you, and you're going to be gone. It's fine.
It's going to be fine. And this is the realization of like, he was in on it too. Although I definitely knew he was in on it the whole time.
Of course.
And he's like, I've been watching over you this whole time. Don't worry about it. So they strap her down and they do a C-section. They don't try to do it vaginally.
Yeah.
And it comes out looking like a full-ass alien, except they puncture the sac and it is twins.
Yeah.
A boy and a girl. And they're like, we have him. And they wrap and clean the baby boy and hand him around as they're like blessing him. And they just leave the baby girl on the table.
Yeah.
Just like, she could fall off that table at any moment. Like that. They do not care if it dies.
They actively try and kill it in like 10 minutes.
Yes.
Like they really don't care about that baby girl. And there is a reason that they're doing that in this movie.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
There's a reason it's a nun that stabs her with the scalpel. Paige.
Yep. Yes, of course. Because it's women not protecting other women.
Exactly.
And we do see, as we see the baby on the table, we cut away from it and then we cut back to it, revealing that she has stolen one of the scalpels on the surgical table.
Love it.
And she's like, can I hold him? I'm his mother. So they bring her the boy.
We could totally see through this. I thought that she was going to kill the baby right there. And then I was like, oh, wait, no, this is Damien. They can't kill this baby.
Right.
So that's when I was like, oh, that rock star is about to get stabbed.
Yeah, right. Because she stabs him in the neck immediately.
Yeah, Cardinal Lawrence is down for the count.
Yeah, chaos. But then she also gets stabbed by Luz.
Yeah.
But just with a scalpel. And so, like, it is survivable. It's not great, but, you know, she's kind of down for the count because she just had surgery and shit.
I was going to say, not for nothing, but she's been stabbed with a scalpel a bunch tonight in surgery. So, yeah, I mean, this is just yet another scalpel wound that she has to deal with.
Right.
But it was like, I bought that she was able to get out of this.
I did too. And they basically, as she goes down, they're like, take the baby, burn everything else, leave them both to die. And you think they mean Father Lawrence, I think is his name? Cardinal Lawrence.
Yeah.
Cardinal Lawrence. You think they mean Cardinal Lawrence. No, they mean the girl baby and her, because they just leave that baby in there to burn.
Yes.
And who was watching this whole time? Carlita. And so Carlita comes for her. She gets up, Margarita gets up, she gets the baby, and Carlita, and the baby escape. But as they're running out, we do get a shot of the flaming demon jackal that they have also left to burn to death.
Yeah.
If it is even corporeal, one would assume, but
they don't want the jackal either. They don't really want the end result of the Antichrist. They want the people to come back to church. So, like, of course they don't want the jackal to survive.
Right. They don't want proof, basically.
Yeah, exactly. That's the reason they want to kill her at the end.
Sure, because she could tell people what they did.
Yes.
But this is where I was like, how is there 10 minutes left? Surely this is the end of the movie. It's not. We cut to the Vatican. We get the connector where it's like, this is the U.S. ambassador. We're going to switch the babies, which is the beginning of the Omen. Great.
Yeah.
But then in the woods, we see Margareta and Carlita raising her daughter together. And Father Brennan comes up and is like, hey, they know you're alive and they're gonna come for you. Heads up.
She like almost shoots him too. I was like, guys, come. He's literally just the messenger.
Yep.
He's here as a friend, like warning you.
Right. Well, and that's why she doesn't shoot him. But she literally is just like, well, what do I, and he's like, they're going to come for her too because she's important. And she's like, okay, but I'm not going to tell them where we are and we're going to fucking fight. And that's the movie.
I do like that he's like, they named your son. His name's Damien. And then boom, that's when the credits hit.
As if we didn't know.
I know, but they gotta put that button on there. Come on. That's Damien's mom right there. And sister. But Paige, having seen this movie, having talked about this movie, having seen a jackal's penis, what did you think about The First Omen?
If you want to watch the best version of this movie, it is immaculate.
Yeah.
This is not bad, but it's not immaculate.
I think your metaphor of Drive and Baby Driver is the perfect metaphor. They're very similar movies, but one's excellent and the other's good.
Right.
And this is the good version of it.
Right.
I do prefer Immaculate, but fuck, this one scared me. I did love the themes it was pointing out and sort of playing on. There's like not much to not like about it. The one thing I do have notes on are like the pacing, which we sort of talked about, because it does just feel long. It's 2 hours and it feels like it's 2:30.
Yes. Yeah. Especially when you, and not to invite the comparison again, especially when you compare it to Immaculate, which I want to say was a tight 90 with no fat on that bone.
I don't remember how long it was exactly, but it was something like that.
I'm pulling it up right now.
Okay, yeah. I do remember it was shorter than this.
Yeah, 1 hour and 29 minutes. It's not even 90. It's 89 minutes. And what they accomplish in 89 minutes, that takes this movie almost 2.5 hours to do, or a full 2.
It feels like 2 hours or 2.5 hours.
Yeah. It's the pacing is one of the places where Immaculate really, really succeeds, in addition to the performances and everything. But
and the performances in this are great. I don't have any notes for that either. Like, I think this is a well shot, well directed, acted movie. I just think they needed some story editing before they released it, maybe. But I do like it. It's good. It's scary though, man. I don't think I'd revisit this one, where I actually might watch Immaculate again just because it's a great movie.
It's really good. Yeah.
But Paige, do you have any fun facts for us?
I do.
Well, hit us with your fun facts.
Unmaculate fun facts. So this movie takes place during a historically accurate period from 1969 to the late 1980s in Italy, known as the Years of Lead in the country.
Of lead, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also, it is set in 1971, just prior to the events of the prologue of The Omen, which came out in 1976. However, if we go by the gravestones as seen in The Omen, they actually mark 1970. So it's a little bit of inaccuracy there.
Weird. Okay.
Even though within the script it says 1971. But
yeah, interesting.
Ralph Ineson's character, Father Brennan, is a slightly younger version of the same role played by Patrick Troughton in The Omen, the original.
Okay.
Troughton was 55 while filming, while Ineson is 52. So it also kind of almost matches ages from movie to movie.
Yeah.
So Cardinal Lawrence's hands appear to be partially paralyzed, his ring and smaller fingers. This is not a character choice. Actor Bill Nighy suffers from, I'm going to try to pronounce this, Dupuytren's contracture. It's a hereditary condition that causes the ring and little fingers of each hand to be permanently bent inwards toward the palm.
Yeah.
You might notice this in many of his other roles. It has been present in many films.
Yeah, and literally like every one of his roles I've ever seen him in, it's been this. He hides it well.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So you don't really notice it most times. But if you're looking at his hands, you could see it. And I want to point this out because you could tell in the scenes, and I only know this because like the way you have to shoot sometimes, you've got to get like a close up, and you don't have time. So like the other actor who's like in that scene with that other character will sometimes not be there.
Right.
And they'll have someone else's hands on the actor's face who's getting their close-up or whatever.
Right.
Bill Nighy's hands are on her when he's doing the close-up and she's like changed down.
Yes, and you can tell from the fingers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, he like stayed for her close-up shots. I was like, good for you, Bill Nighy. I bet you're fun to have on set.
I bet. I have heard nothing but good things. Now, at around 7 minutes into the movie, as they're driving from the airport to the convent, the song playing on the radio is Some Velvet Morning by Nancy Sinatra and Lee Hazelwood, originally recorded at the end of 1967. So that is period accurate as well.
Okay.
Despite being a prequel, this is the 6th Omen film. And it has been 18 years since the last Omen, which came out the year I graduated high school in 2006.
Okay.
The scene with Margaret in her bed after her night out with Luz, with her hair kind of spidered out around her pillow.
They do that a few times, yeah.
Yeah, it resembles a specific photograph called At Warm Springs from 1991 by photographer Sally Mann. And that was apparently a deliberate choice. It looks cool, I guess.
It does look really cool. Yeah. And it sort of looks spider webby and there's spider imagery throughout it. So I feel like thematically it works too.
Yeah. So Nell Tiger-Free and Charles Dance both played members of the same royal family in the HBO series Game of Thrones. It is the Lannisters. Although they never shared any scenes together, Charles Dance played the patriarch of the Lannister family, Lord Tywin, up until season 4 when that character passes away.
Yeah.
Nell Tiger-Free played his granddaughter, Princess Myrcella Baratheon, in season 5, where she was recast as an older teenage version of the character. So she played it up through that season and then got recast.
Yeah.
So
that's cool though.
In addition, Ralph Ineson also played Dagmar Cleftjaw on Game of Thrones as well. So lots of Game of Thrones alums in this movie. And those are your fun facts.
Well, thank you for those fun facts, Paige. Let's talk a little bit about box office. So what do you think the production budget was for The First Omen? And it came out this year, so let's just say 2024.
It did come out this year, and they shot a lot of it on location in Rome. Which I think actually probably made it a little more expensive. I'm going to say they spent about $45 million on this.
I'm happy to report only cost $30 million, which is still pretty expensive. But
okay. It looks good for 30, yeah.
I think especially because of what you just said. They shot on location in Rome.
Yeah.
Like, that can't be cheap. I mean, it might be. I don't know, but I assume it's not. So, like, well done. And there's a lot of locations, a lot of talent in this movie. Anyway, $30 million. You guys did great.
Yeah, for sure.
But, Paige, it premiered in theaters on April 5th, 2024, and it was fourth the weekend it came out. It was beat by Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire. Number 2, which is a movie I saw and I loved, Monkey Man.
Oh, Monkey
Number
Man.
3, Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire. Number 4 was, of course, The First Omen. And number 5 was Kung Fu Panda, meaning Monkey Man was your only non-sequel in theaters that in the top 5 that week. Man, okay. But Paige, what do you think? I almost said Monkey Man. What do you think The First Omen made in its opening weekend?
I think opening weekend, because this was a big opening weekend. I remember this. And I think this made probably 8 or 9 million that opening week.
Yeah. So Paige, this brought in $8.3 million. It was a big opening weekend for a lot of movies, but it brought in $8 million. The fifth place movie brought in almost $8 million. Anyway, a lot of movies did well that weekend. It was in theaters for 8 weeks total, but was never again in the top 5. It was 7 in its second week and 10th in its third week, and then just quickly fell out of theaters out of that. And honestly, like, they pulled it out of theaters after its third weekend, so it fell pretty quick. Anyway, Paige, what do you think it made domestically in the box office?
I bet this made its budget back. I'm going to say domestically, it probably comes in around 50 with a lot more international.
Paige, it actually brought in $20 million domestically.
Bummer. Yikes on
so
bikes.
It didn't quite make its budget back. Yeah. And it did make its budget back internationally. In fact, it made $30.6 million internationally. But that's still only a total of $50.7 million. Which I think is probably much lower than they were hoping for.
Yeah.
But I kind of I don't know when Immaculate came out.
Literally within weeks of each other. It was so close.
Yeah, so here's the deal. Immaculate came out first.
Yep.
And I think that probably hurt this movie. Immaculate came out on March 22nd.
Yeah.
So yeah. Although I'll say this, Immaculate did worse in theaters, only brought in $15 million domestically.
But Immaculate had a much lower budget, if I remember correctly.
I mean, yeah, probably.
Because I remember being stunned by the budget of Immaculate. And I know that Sydney Sweeney put up some of her own money for that shit.
She'd been wanting to do it for a long time, I remember.
And good for her. It's so good.
It is so good. Yeah, Immaculate was $9 million, Paige. So you were correct there. It was less than a third of what The First Omen was. But yeah, I mean, I definitely understand why two movies coming out that close together, the second one wouldn't do as much as anticipated. Although I do think if you're looking at like what IP is deeper in pop culture, it's definitely The Omen.
Right.
So I would, if I was going to put money on which one did better, I'd say The Omen. And technically I'd be right. It did more in theaters.
Sure.
But if you're looking at what makes a movie a success, I would say Immaculate is more of the success because it made more over its budget percentage-wise than this movie did.
Right.
But
that's the weird part of it is like if you're looking at percents based on budget versus marketing spend, because, you know, and all of that, and probably longevity because it almost immediately went into streaming. And so you've got streaming revenue too.
Yeah.
And it is still potential for award season, although I don't know that people will recognize it for that.
It's horror, man. They probably will. And it's like, that's not uncommon. Like, we don't get any noms in horror for,
Literally all weekend could not shut up about it. I was like, Demi Moore deserves the Oscar. And then people were just like, what are you I'm like, she deserves it and she won't get it because of horror.
No, you're not wrong. I mean, but the same thing happened to Toni Collette in Hereditary. Like, she didn't win anything for that. And literally, that's the best acting performance I've ever seen.
Yeah.
She's so good in that movie. Anyway, But Paige, that's your box office. Do you want to hit us with your scary scale?
Sure. Our scary scale is a scale of how scary we found the movie today, starting with 1 at Ghostbusters and 10 for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Todd, where are you going to put it?
I'm going to give this a 5. There were a lot of jump scares. It really freaked me out. I mean, even so much that like Pope Ferratu, who doesn't do anything scary really.
He just stands around. Yeah.
He's just creepy. Like it was creeping me out.
Yeah.
Anyway, a 5.
I'm going to put this around like a 2.5.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Jump scares. And the 2 is for the jump scares, I guess, because that's kind of the only thing that really got me as far as like fear goes.
Yeah, but your jump scares don't really scare you like they get me.
No. And I will say they aren't cheap. They're earned jump scares in this movie.
Yes,
they work great.
Agreed. It's not like The Nun.
Right. It's not like The Nun. Fucking Nun. And I don't think I rated Immaculate that high either necessarily. I may have because I felt like Immaculate was more emotionally affecting for me.
I was going to say, yeah, I think you did rate it higher, but it wasn't because it was like scary. It's because it was like, oh, this is too close to home scary.
It was intense, yes. But it's because it doesn't have the supernatural element. It's just people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'll give this a 2. But that's our scary scale.
Well, Paige, this week, we gave the listeners the gift of the First Omen episode. Next week, they got to pick whatever movie they wanted us to give them for the holidays.
Ooh.
And in their infinite wisdom, they sort of whittled down the initial list to the final 4 that actually you'll see a lot of repeated from last month. The final 4 were Heretic, Smile, Oddity, and a new one this month, Terrifier. And Terrifier almost won, guys. It was so close. Heretic actually won with 38%. Terrifier came in at 33%. So your homework for next week is to watch Heretic as we give you guys the gift you actually wanted this month.
Hey, do we have any reviews?
Yeah, so Paige, this week I'm going to read a comment from our most recent The Rocky Horror Picture Show episode. And this one's from Darth Snuggles.
Oh, hey.
Love that name. And they say, my college roommate, a 6-foot Amazon of a girl with the personality of a golden retriever, played Rocky in our theater group's Halloween screening.
I love that.
Afterwards, she had to be persuaded to put clothes on again so she didn't freeze to death in the Pennsylvania autumn. And that sounds like a delightful evening out with my very tall roommate.
She sounds like a real G.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
That sounds awesome.
But, we had a bunch of comments on that one that were sort of in the similar vein.
Yeah, a lot of Shadowcast members in the Facebook group.
I know, I loved it. With a lot of people sharing photos and stuff, it was great. I love seeing those. Anyway, so if you want to have me read your 5-star Apple review or Spotify comment, leave us a 5-star review on Apple or a comment on Spotify, and I'll do just that. So guys, if you like this show but want to hear Paige and I talk about romantic comedies or just regular romantic movies, check out our other podcast. Some might call it a sister podcast called Romancing the Pod, where we do just that weekly. It's a lot like this show, but for romance and romantic comedies, because Paige doesn't like them. So we make her watch them, just like you guys make me watch horror over here. But if you want to follow me, I am at Todd J. Awesome on all the social media. Paige is at Rampage Wesley on Instagram?
Yes, and TikTok.
And just Paige Wesley on Twitter, because you got that before some CEO lady and she wanted it, but you wouldn't give it back, and I respect you for that.
Refuse.
Also, Paige
Suck it, other Paige Wesley.
Paige is also on another podcast. It's great. You should check it out. It's called Cult Podcast with Armando Torres, who is a wonderful person. And if you want to support this show, go to Patreon at patreon.com/horrorvirgin, where there are a lot of great levels and a lot of great things. We do the Patreon shout outs at the beginning of every episode. We do listener requests, stuff like that, bonus episodes. So you'll be getting all of that content, plus episodes a day early with no ads, and who doesn't love that? So sign up for the Patreon and get a lot of great stuff.
That's going to be it for us, you guys. I'm Paige.
And I'm your horror virgin, Todd.
Keep it oogie spooky.
Yeah, have an amazing week, guys. Bye! I can't believe I locked myself out of my room like an idiot, nerds.